Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining me today on this first live session in the Unbridled Freedom, a Spiritual Journey private Facebook group. Today, we are going to be talking about focused and calm horses. And I will be looking down occasionally at my notes because I want to make sure I cover everything I want to cover in this 30 minutes we have together. So let's just take a minute and feel our feet on the ground and take some nice deep breaths all the way down into our belly. Just getting here in the present moment. I don't know what your day's been like before you joined us here. So let's just take some nice deep breaths. We can close our eyes. Breathing all the way down deep into our belly and letting it all out. Again. And again. Taking the time to take those nice deep breaths oxygenates our entire body, our brain, our blood, all of our organs. And that is so incredibly important for us and our horses. I'm going to get into that in a minute. But why is that so important for us? We tend to be in a hurry a lot. And when we're in a hurry, we tend to take short, shallow, in our upper lung lobes breaths. And when we try to take a deep breath by putting our hands on our belly, 2 inches below our belly button, and we try to take a deep breath in, and when we do, we will feel our belly expand out. That is so hard for so many of us. And I start by teaching my students how to do deep breathing. Because when we're nervous and we're taking short, shallow breaths, we are triggering what is called our autonomic nervous system. And that consists of our sympathetic nervous system, which is responsible for releasing adrenaline and cortisol. And it puts us into that heightened awareness, that fight or flight, that, oh boy, we better watch out, something's up state of being. And when that happens, our body stops, our nervous system stops oxygenating and sending blood to our entire body. And instead, it starts to focus mainly on getting blood to our heart, our lungs, and our muscles, because that's what we need when we feel like we are being threatened. It's called the fight or flight. And our parasympathetic nervous system is when we're taking nice, deep, full breaths, we feel safe. We're fully oxygenating our entire body, all of our organs. We're getting blood, oxygen to our blood, and all is well. And in the parasympathetic nervous system, we are releasing endorphins and cortisol, the feel-good chemicals. And we feel safe, and we're calm, and we're grounded, and we can think clearly and respond to the stimuluses in our environment. When we are in the sympathetic nervous system, we are in reactive mode. We can't think clearly because we're not getting enough blood and oxygen to our brain to be able to think clearly. This is all going to tie into how we can help our horses to become more focused and calm. Because when we are with our horses, I hope it's all of our goals to be their leader. To be a leader that they feel like they can fully count on. They feel safe with. They believe that we have their best interest in mind. They can trust us. They feel safe. They feel secure. They feel comfortable. They are sensory awareness masters, which means they use all of their 6 senses to constantly to survey their environment, including all of the living beings within their environment. And they can tell if you're taking short, shallow breaths. They can feel it. They can sense it. If they're close enough, they can even hear it. They can smell the adrenaline coming from the other beings in their near vicinity. And when we are with our horses, we are in what we call their bubble. They're in our bubble, and they can feel and sense and smell everything that's coming from us. So when we're taking those short, shallow breaths, we may not even know it because we're so used to breathing that way. But when we're breathing that way, they can sense it. And what it does, excuse me, my nose tickles. When we're breathing that way, they can sense that we are releasing adrenaline and cortisol. And it puts them on heightened alert. It makes them wonder what's wrong in the environment. If my human, if my leader, if the person who's in control of my destiny at this moment is feeling that fight or flight, then I need to be feeling that fight or flight. I need to be careful. I need to make sure I'm safe. We're safe. So how do we interrupt that pattern for our horses? If we have horses that tend to be a little bit spooky, a little bit high-headed, a little bit nervous, leaving their enclosure, leaving their pen, leaving their pasture, leaving their buddies, and they're anxious, stressed, how do we help them? Well, the first and foremost thing that we need to do is we need to learn how to breathe. We need to learn how to take those deep belly breaths. And when we take those deep belly breaths, we are oxygenating our entire being, which is putting us in the present moment and grounding us. And they feel that. I work with a lot of wild horses, and I work with a lot of green horses, and I help a lot of women who are lacking the confidence that they once had or they desire to have. And their horses are lacking confidence. And who knows which came first, the chicken or the egg, right? Doesn't matter. The partnership, the relationship, there is a lacking of confidence and safety, sense of safety, sense of comfort. And how, as the leader that we want to be for them, how can we help them through that? And it starts with being aware of how you're breathing. Taking time to pause. If you catch yourself working with your horse, or you're trying to do something with your horse, you're trying to groom them, you're trying to halter them, you're trying to get on them or saddle them or take them in the trailer, whatever it is, work in the arena, on the trail, and your horse is struggling to be present and focused and calm, how do you help them? You start focusing on your breathing. Stop what you're doing, stand beside them, sit on them, and just take some deep belly breaths. And when I do that, I breathe in through the top of my head. I imagine that all this oxygen is coming in through the top of my head and going right down through the center of my body and out through the soles of my feet. And I notice that when I take my first deep breath, it might be hard. It might feel like somebody's pushing on my chest, or I might get lightheaded, or notice tension in my jaw or my shoulders. That's where my two spots are, is my jaw and my jaws and my shoulders. And if I notice tension in there, I will literally breathe into those places and breathe out the stress. And I promise you that if you practice this around your horse, you're going to witness your horse matching you, getting calmer with you, getting more focused with you. That is the best thing that you can do for both of you. Because what it does, if we go back to that sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system, the autonomic nervous system, when you pause and you breathe, and I like to do 4 to 6 breaths if the horse is really worried or I've had a stressful day, whatever, I may do 6 to 10. Take the time that it takes to get out of that sympathetic nervous system and down into that place where you are fully oxygenating. You can think clearly, you feel calm, you feel grounded. It's going to take time. It's not going to happen overnight. But the way that I would recommend you do this is practice this away from your horse. I like to practice it in the morning, with first thing when I wake up before I get out of bed, and the last thing I do before I go to bed. Because what it's doing is it's letting go of all the stress and the adrenaline and the cortisol, and it's replacing it with calm and endorphins and serotonin, which is going to make me sleep better. It's going to make me feel more energized when I wake up in the morning. So practice this away from your horse, so that when you get near your horse and you are feeling not focused, not calm, they're not focused or calm, there's chaos going on around you. The breath. The breath is the gateway to being grounded, to being in the present moment, to thinking clearly, to being able to respond and not react. I have so many of my clients' horses that when I start working with them, both the client and the horse are pretty anxious. They're pretty high energy. They're pretty reactive. They struggle to focus. They struggle to be calm. They struggle to communicate with each other because they're in reactive mode. They're in that sympathetic nervous system. And the first thing that I work on is teaching the person how to breathe, to become aware of themselves. And that's a hard thing. So many of us are completely unaware of how we're showing up in every moment. And it starts with, how are we breathing? If we're struggling to focus, how are we breathing? So when I begin to teach my clients to focus on their breath, we breathe before we get started. I breathe 4 to 8 breaths before I get out of my car to go greet my women and their horses. And I will take 4 deep breaths. I will just pause before we start our lesson and take those nice deep breaths and have my client join me, and the horse calms down. When your horse is in that reactive mode and you're in that reactive mode, there's very little opportunity for real solid connection and communication, because you're both in survival mode. When we get into survival mode around our horses, we want to grab onto the reins and we want to bring them in and control them and make them be quiet. Settle down, be quiet. Well, that's to comfort us. That's not to comfort them. Horses are claustrophobic. They're prey animals. When they get into that fight or flight, that adrenaline, that sympathetic nervous system, they need to move their feet to feel safe. But we can't let them move their feet without any direction. So as their leaders, even though we may be a little anxious ourselves, we may be a little worried and lacking some confidence that we can control our horse that is completely out of its mind at the moment, we still need to be able to breathe. And by practicing before we ever get into this situation, makes it easier for us to breathe when we get there. But the best thing that we can do for our horses in those moments is to allow them to drift, but not let them run away with us. And the way that we do that is by bending their neck and moving their hindquarters. Send them in a half circle. Bend their neck, move the hindquarters. Every time we bend their neck and ask them to move their hindquarters, we are engaging their mind. They have to stop being in the fight or flight reactive mode to understand what we're saying, for their brain to tell their body, oh, I'm supposed to move my hip. Now we've got their mind paying attention to us, and we, through the calmness of our breathing and the gentle move your feet in the direction that I want you to go, not where you are just haphazardly going. You are being the leader that your horse needs you to be in that moment. And I have taken some pretty frightened, wanting to flight or fight horses or freeze horses from their person, because she was completely in, I don't know what to do. I want to shut it down. I want to control it. I want to hold it tight to its snap because it's scaring me, which just makes everything worse, because it's so dangerous to have 1,200 pounds of fight or flight right up close to you. What I will do is I will breathe, and I will take the lead rope from the person, and I will start having a conversation with the horse. Back up. Back up is one of the most powerful things. Teach your horse when they're calm how to back up, how to move their hindquarters, how to move their forequarters out on the circle. This is all groundwork, so that when everything gets fast and furious and we get tight and they get flight, we know to go to our breath, and we know to communicate to them, move your feet in the direction that I am guiding you to go, because you have to get your horse's mind back. And the only way that you can do that is by breathing, being the calm in the eye of the storm, really. Being focused and calm through your breath, and guiding your horse to move his body parts. When you ask a horse to back up, and they're like, oh my God, what's going on? What's going on? And you say, can you back up 4 steps, please, with leadership and authority? When your horse gets that message to the brain, and then the brain says, body parts, we have to move backwards, they're now in the present moment. You now have their attention. Breathe. pause. If they can't pause after they've backed up, they go right back to moving their feet again, then do a half circle. Move their hindquarters, have them back up 4 steps. And I literally do that. I will take a deep breath. Do that with me right now. Just take a nice deep breath. Nobody's listening, okay? Nobody can hear you or see you. So don't be self-conscious. Just play with me. Take a nice deep breath. What I want you to notice on this next deep breath is notice when you inhale, your body comes up. But when you go, notice how heavy you get in your seat. Well, when you're standing, you get heavy in your feet, which grounds you, and your horse feels that. So when you back your horse up and they're looking at you, go, and just the makes them go, what are you doing? But then they can feel that you're calming down, that you're focused, that you're calm, that you're grounded. And they want nothing more than to be that in their own selves. So when you model that, you mirror that for them, they will try. And if they get to moving their feet again anxiously and worried like, just half circle, disengage the hindquarters. Can you back up? Once they back up, say 4 to 6, not just at 1 or 2. That's not enough. That's not enough to engage the mind to really think, I have to move this 1,200-pound body backwards. 4 to 6, 8 steps back, and then pause and take some nice deep breaths. And I promise you that if you practice your breathing prior, and you practice your move your hindquarters, move your forequarters back up, prior to these situations, I guarantee you that you will get results that you were not expecting that will blow your mind. I've been doing this stuff for 23 years, focusing on becoming the best horsewoman I could possibly be for horses. And in the last 12 years, I have spent a great deal of time working with wild Mustangs. And they have helped me to be 100% aware of what's going on in this vessel, in this being, so that I can be a leader for them that they can trust, that they can turn to when they're like, holy smokes, what's going on? Are we okay? And I'm like, we are absolutely okay. Let's move our feet. So I hope that this is making sense to you. I would love to hear any questions that you might have, any ahas that you might have gained through this, through your breath. When you start taking those nice deep breaths, tell me in the comments. Is it hard? Does it feel like somebody's pushing on your chest? Is it hard to make your belly go out? What happens for most of us is when we take a deep breath in, notice how my chest goes out, and you can't see my belly, but it went out too. And then when I exhale, it goes down. For most of us, and I used to be this way, when you breathe in, this happens, and when you breathe out, that happens, because you're only using the upper portion of your lung lobes. We have 3 sections of our lungs, and the lowest ones are way down under our rib cage. And when we blow up our belly, we expand our belly with our breath, you are fully oxygenating your body. And what I found when I first started doing this, I would get dizzy, and it would make me uncomfortable. I'd almost feel like a little bit of anxiety or fight or flight, because I was getting like lightheaded, and it was like, whoa, this deep breathing stuff is bad. But it was just because my body's not used to all that oxygen. My brain was going, what are you doing? But now that I have learned to really breathe deeply, my body, I will catch myself in a busy day rushing from here, point A to point B. Yes, I still do that. As much as I try to be calm and focused, I still have those moments. I will catch my body go, and I'm like, whoa, that was totally automatic. That's awesome. It's become, my body has started saying, I need more oxygen, and it just breathes deeply on its own. That's pretty cool. Alrighty, everybody. I would love to hear your thoughts, your comments, your ahas, questions. We're going to be doing this in this private group every Thursday, 4:30 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time. And next week, we are starting an 8-part series of Riding with Confidence. So every week, we're going to have a new topic. There's 2 weeks in October that I will actually be out of town, so we'll be skipping those. So we're going to go every week, but we'll miss the first week, and I believe it's the 3rd week in October. But I will be sending messages out in this group reminding you of these calls. If you miss it, don't worry. You can watch the replay. But please, I know if I am addressing the things you guys want to know about by your comments and your questions. So please don't be shy. This page is for you. I teach all of this stuff and so much more in my Unbridled Freedom Horsemanship mentoring program. If you want to know more about that, comment in this feed or send me a direct message, and we will set up a call and talk about where you are in your horsemanship and what you might be struggling with, or what your goals are and how I could possibly help you to get there. This Facebook page, this private group, we're going to go through so much, and my goal is to help you to expand your knowledge, your understanding, your skills, and your tools through this group. That is my goal, and I just want to thank you all so much for joining this group. I couldn't do it without you, and I'm excited to be doing this with you. And I think that is all I have to say on focus and calm. So let's take a minute or two, or a moment or two, and let's just take a few nice deep breaths together as we end this amazing time together. Remember, as you take these deep breaths, to really breathe down into that space below your belly button, in the center of your lower spot. That's called your power center, your Dante end. It's where we get grounded and present. It's actually when we're in the saddle. It's where most of our communication is coming from us to the horse. It's not our hands and our feet. Most of us ride with our hands and our feet because we don't understand that it's truly our core, our power center, our Dante end that is doing the communication. But our horses know it. So practice your breathing, and I will see you guys here on this private group page during the week, and I look forward to all of you that can join me next Thursday. Our first session next Thursday for the Riding with Confidence series. The first one is acknowledge your feelings and set realistic goals. I'm excited to share this with you guys. All right, everybody, take care.